1998, Hideo Kojima released Metal Gear Solid under Konami, which later became one of the most influential games ever conceived, and literally created the stealth subgenre of first-person shooting games. The game focused on that of Solid Snake during the Shadow Moses incident. The game and its character of Snake proved to be monumentally popular. Most gamers were introduced to the Metal Gear franchise and storyline through events from that game, and although at the time a smaller amount of the gaming population had heard of the franchise from the prior games Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. With how popular the game was, there were extremely high levels of anticipation for Metal Gear Solid 2. In 2001, released for the Sony PlayStation 2, Sons of Liberty was released. The game was brilliant, but at the time there were two main complaints of the game. Firstly, the actual gameplay as Solid Snake was relatively little when compared to the other major complaint of the time being that of the then new character Raiden, in which the majority of the game had been focused upon. The consensus of gamers at the time were that they had desired to play another game as Snake, and had plenty of optimism that they would. The intention of Kojima at the time was that he originally wanted to make Raiden much more of an important character in the Metal Gear series than what eventually came of him. Backlash by fans whom had desired to play as Snake once more made Kojima rethink this tragedy of the main character in relation to Metal Gear Solid. The abrupt focus on Raiden wasn't entirely Kojima's fault to take. Konami officials didn't want to have Kojima and his team spending developmental time with mission procedures and weapons handling to new gamers whom had happened to have Sons of Liberty as their first Metal Gear Solid game, and not knowing what to do if this was their first game, unlike if other players had played prior games they already knew how to play the gaming dynamics of the game. Another reason for Kojima putting Raiden into focus as the main character for Metal Gear Solid 2 were the facts that he had overheard female employees speaking about how Snake wasn't necessarily attractive physically, and Kojima used this as somewhat of a motivational factor to make a more Asian-themed, friendly, or attractive main character that might appeal to female gamers. This being Raiden and his appearance and his style of play using swords when compared to Snake's method of guns. Kojima knew that the sudden change might offend longtime fans of the series prior to Metal Gear Solid and those whom had first played Metal Gear. Raiden's presence in the game was kept secret until release, with game trailers and information focusing only on what Snake had done in the game, with Kojima hoping that the public would react positively to Raiden in such an important role and emphasis in Sons of the Patriots. This did not happen, as gamers and critics commented that the focus of the game, though the Big Shell incident, mostly on Raiden and not Snake. It wasn't that Raiden was a bad character, just that the majority of gamers and critics didn't like Kojima's plans to slowly or abruptly make Raiden the focus of the Metal Gear franchise. Snake Eater would be released in 2004 again for the Sony PlayStation 2, and for those whom had wanted to play as Snake for most, if not all of the game, it wasn't since 1998 that they had this experience. Any criticism against Kojima was eventually silenced with the focus of the franchise once again on Solid Snake, or in this case, Naked Snake. 10 years after the original Metal Gear Solid game was released, Guns of the Patriots was released for the Sony PlayStation 3. Kojima was very careful about the perception that Raiden had in the game, and he was clearly put into a supporting role to Snake. However, the idea of Raiden as a main character in a spin-off franchise or solo game to Metal Gear Solid did not go away and was not forgotten by Kojima's staff, as Metal Gear Solid Revengeance was released in 2013. Though the game sold well, reception from gamers and critics touted that Snake was the very essence of Metal Gear, and to divert from that, changed what it meant to be in terms of what a Metal Gear or Metal Gear Solid game should be. What was interesting is that even though Hideo Kojima didn't work personally with the game, in 2012 he mentioned that depending on the popularity of Revengeance, it might get its own franchise. But this didn't happen. Although the game sold well, it didn't do nowhere near enough for a conclusive, serious, motivational cause for Kojima's team to develop a Raiden-based series of games within the Metal Gear Solid universe. The conflict between Hideo Kojima, his supporters, and Konami lasted years, and the viability or appeal of a sequel to Revengeance was abandoned. Sometimes a character could be forgotten because originally they were supposed to do a lot more than what we saw of them.